Welcome back, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight or today or whatever time it is? I'm your host, King Goji.
And I'm your co-host, GODZILLA. Welcome back to the Two Guys on a Kaiju podcast, where we talk about all things Kaiju and break them down, give you the King Goji metric, the measurement, the rating.
I don't know about that.
We give you the King Goji rating at the end.
Sure, yeah.
And,
Okay.
We consult our expert over here, and
I'm
yes.
a newbie.
That's right. I'm the new guy, GODZILLA, kind of new to Kaiju.
Yep.
And King Goji's introduced me to a brand new Kaiju today because we talked about Godzilla for our first couple episodes, and now we're on to a new one. Why don't you give us the rundown on this new Kaiju, King Goji?
All right. Well, I'm going to give a little bit of a different take on this one.
Nice.
So we watched this one today, and yes, it is it's been a long time for me for this film. But it was your first time for this film, as you stated.
Correct.
The movie we watched is called GAMERA. He is the flying turtle.
Which I had no idea.
Well, I wanted to leave that as a surprise.
That was perfect.
Yeah. And so GAMERA is a turtle. Well, at least the original concept was a turtle. Basically, he's a ripoff of Godzilla in origin, but we're not going to go into the origin part. We'll just talk about the basics.
Yeah.
So GAMERA is a turtle that is the ability to fly like a flying saucer, or his 2 footholes can be jet boosters.
Yeah, kind of like Iron Man.
Kind of like Iron Man,
yeah.
That's a little bit of inspiration for Iron Man's look from the booster's feet. So,
yeah.
So that's I don't know if that's really the truth, but we'll see.
That's kind of what
I like to think that way, that it was inspired by GAMERA.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I was getting as we're watching this film. And so, speaking of the kind of Godzilla comparison, when did this film come out?
It actually started, and it was a company called Dai Films, and Dai went out of business in the 70s. They had made prior GAMERA films early in the 60s. And they went bankrupt. So in 1994, Dai was in the process of reorganization. Someone had bought the company. I'm not really sure who bought the company, but they were resurrected essentially. And they saw the Godzilla films of the 90s were not doing so well. They were kind of poor in quality. The last Godzilla film was actually the better of the previous three in the 90s. And so Godzilla had taken a hiatus. They actually killed off Godzilla. That's another episode for another time. But GAMERA kind of filled the void. And so GAMERA was a much better budget. They had very good special effects, wonderful acting, and just a better story.
Yeah. Yeah. So far, I've really only seen the 1954 Godzilla, and then this GAMERA film, because like I've said, I'm brand new. I'm kind of just experiencing it with any listeners that might be brand new as well.
Right.
And I was impressed by this one.
Yeah.
You told me that this one was a reboot.
It was a reboot.
Originally shot in originally this original story was 1965. This one that we watched tonight, 1985.
No, 1995.
Yeah, the one we watched tonight.
Yeah.
1995.
The original was 1965. And
correct.
Yeah, so this,
Yeah, and I was impressed. Like, obviously, compared to the 1954 Godzilla, which is an incredible film, this one was really fun.
Yeah.
Because it felt like it was more visceral. The special effects were really, really cool.
Right.
And like we kind of mentioned,
the jet booster feet.
I was caught off guard whenever this guy, not only does he there's a pretty good lead up in the beginning to figuring out, okay, what's this giant kind of like rock-like island structure doing? How's it moving? Why is the rocks on it? Why are they body temperature?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden he comes out of the ocean and he is just kind of wreaking havoc. You think that he's going to go Godzilla mode and kind of destroy things just for the sake of destroying them. But then you realize he's after these other creatures, which are called
Gauss.
Yeah, what are these Gauss-like creatures?
Bat-like lizards.
Yeah.
And they can shoot high-pitched sonic waves out of their mouths.
Yeah.
And they're carnivorous, so they're a predatorial-like creature.
Yeah, they're the dangerous ones. And the first kind of thing we get is they call them these giant birds in the film.
Constantly. Now, in the Japanese version, they're called lizard birds.
Lizard birds.
Yeah, they're more appropriate for it. But then in the U.S. dub, they just said birds.
Yeah.
For most of the film.
They kind of look like these pterodactyl scorpion, like lizard things, which are pretty cool. They look pretty menacing. And one of the first things that threw me off was they find this giant pile of poop. And
that looks like paper mache.
Yeah, just gross, gooey paper
Very
mache.
gross. And you see one of the victims' sunglasses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You realize that these things like ate and digested this human. And so you're like, oh, these things are bad news.
Yeah. And also, if you notice their design, their heads are almost like a hammerhead style kind of head.
Yeah, true.
And their eyeballs are very weird.
Yeah.
But kind of menacing, but looking. And they also have the ability to transform into a bigger one.
Yeah, which is pretty cool because, you're kind of like wondering, okay, where's the storyline going to go? You realize that GAMERA, eventually you kind of realize that he's here to protect.
Correct.
Like they were talking about the storyline going as they're kind of figuring out more things. They realize that this ancient civilization created both the Gauss and GAMERA.
Correct.
And the Gauss kind of got out of control, so they created GAMERA next
He's a pest control.
Yeah, he's like pest control.
Very pest control.
The last hope.
Correct.
And so GAMERA is this kind of cool, like, salvation savior character who comes in to help it, like when the situation looks the most dire.
Can I tell you something really funny?
Yeah, hit me with it.
He's called the Jesus Turtle.
The Jesus Turtle?
He's the Jesus Turtle.
Did you just make that up, or is that a real thing?
No, for fans who are like Christians and turtle fans.
They draw the correlations.
They call him the Jesus Turtle.
That's so funny. He definitely. So that's the thing I noticed about.
Yeah.
The difference is that with Godzilla, you're kind of like terrified because he's like
anti-hero.
Yeah. He's like that ultimate monster who you can't help but love, but he's also destroying everything and terrifying.
And he kills people.
And GAMERA, you realize, is like you feel connected to him, and you're rooting for him. And it's funny because one of the characters, I wrote her name down.
Asagi.
Yeah, you got it.
Asagi.
Yeah, she develops this kind of weird bond with GAMERA because she has like this shell that came from GAMERA.
It looks like a shrimp, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's in shape of a shrimp.
Yeah, it's this funny little.
It's a funny medallion. Yeah, it's actually a metal. As if you were watching the movie,
it's right.
A metal.
It's that new metal
the new metal they find, and it literally is like a psychic link connection between the two.
Yeah, which is kind of wild. It's like you kind of realize that there's some stakes are raised because if GAMERA dies, then she dies as well.
Too.
Like whenever he gets injured, she gets like a cut across her face
or an arm bleeding.
Yeah, and she's very like that's the place where we've said it before. We ended up watching this one on the English dub, but I actually am becoming more of a fan of the actual. Like watching it with English subtitles, but the original Japanese because it kind of makes the acting look cheesy. But the acting's actually really pretty well done. Like, it seems cheesy with the dub, but actually
that's how I watched it originally, and actually that's how I think the dub is actually better for this film.
Okay.
I mean, I'm gonna hear people say no, it's not, but you know what? You're wrong. Anyway, I think the dubbing for this film was on par.
All things considered, the dub acting actually for this one wasn't bad.
And they actually hired good dub voice actors for this film. And it wasn't just
bigger budget.
Yeah, well, it was $7 million budget. So I don't really know. I think it was more than that, but I'm not really sure. I'm not going to quote. I just quoted, but I'm going to take that back.
Yeah. I can even edit that out if you want
it's
to.
Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't edit it out. That should be in there. We should know our faults. Yeah. Anyway, I think the acting, especially, I'm going to shout out, if Tiffany Grant, you're out there and you're listening, you did a very good job dubbing. So her voice was not, she only did one character in that whole movie. So they hired really good, I don't know any of the other voice actors in that movie, but she really did a good job as Dr. whatever her face was.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tiffany Grant, you're awesome. Love you. You're awesome.
Yeah, she was the ornithologist.
Ornithologist, that's correct. I think is the term you were the bird lady.
Yeah. She's the bird expert.
She's the bird lady.
In to figure it out.
She's the Gauss expert.
Yeah, that's right. Right. And we decided to watch this one in English dub because the dub is actually like
decent.
Pretty good.
Decent.
It's pretty good for this movie.
And it's the first actual. Other than it was my first non-Godzilla film I actually watched.
Really?
As a child, yes.
Okay.
And this was the one I saw on Sci-Fi Channel. So it was dubbed on Sci-Fi. And then I think like around 98, 99, I finally got a copy of it as it was released in America, because you couldn't see it unless it was on television. So I got the AWV, which was an anime and Japanese monster distribution company, and they had produced many series. I can't even name them all, but they had a lot of the GAMERA films on VHS. So that's how I got a hold of it.
Nice.
And I probably wore that tape out. So, I'm glad Blu-ray and DVD are around.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For sure. And it kind of reminded me, because you're telling me that you obviously said in the beginning that this was done by a different studio, kind of a rival monster to the Godzilla world.
Yes.
So it kind of reminds me, probably not the same kind of correlation as like Marvel and DC, but kind of reminds me of like the rivalry we see today between, who likes the DC films better than the Marvel films. And so it's kind of like a fun Godzilla rivalry. But up to this point, all the kaiju you had known growing up was in the Godzilla universe.
Correct.
So this was the first time you stepped out.
All of the Godzilla monsters in they call it the Toho universe, but it is essentially the Godzilla universe. Anything connected to the kaiju in the Godzilla verse is the Toho verse. Toho verse.
Cool. That's cool.
So Dai Studios was the company that was made. Actually, it went bankrupt in 1970, in the 70s. I'm not going to put a particular date on that.
Yeah.
But in the early 90s, they saw the poor quality in some of the Godzilla films. They were getting lazy about editing. So Dai was resurrected, and Dai saw a market for people who just didn't want to see Godzilla constantly in the same formula. So they were getting kind of tired of the whole... I don't really know how to describe the formula for the 90s Godzilla.
Yeah, it felt repetitive, maybe.
It's repetitive, the same monster.
A lot of stock footage.
Very some stock footage. There wasn't as much towards the mid 90s, but the plots were all the same, and they just wanted a different plot for GAMERA, and it became a trilogy. There were only 3 films made in the 90s, and they felt that was probably enough because there was no reason to make another GAMERA film.
Yeah, basically you just bring back another bad guy monster.
Yeah, to fill that area of time, and then wait for the Godzilla films to kind of develop in the 2000 millennium era. And after that, GAMERA kind of faded away for a while. And I guess the highlight of the GAMERA films are the 90s. Those are the highlights.
This is kind of a off the wall question.
Go ahead.
When were like the Ninja Turtles getting really popular? Was this around the same time?
So you're talking about the cartoon or the movies?
Either or.
So Ninja Turtles was popular around... The cartoon was getting kind of popular in the 90s.
Okay.
Late 80s, early 90s.
That's what I was thinking, because it's kind of like a perfect time for them to release GAMERA.
Yeah. So around 92, the last Turtles episode came out. I wouldn't quote me on that. But the movies were in development. 94 was the second Ninja Turtles movie. So yeah, I guess GAMERA was kind of hopping on that train of Turtle Mania.
Because I actually think the suit, like that the suit actor's in, actually looks pretty cool.
Yes, it is.
Like it's a very cool suit. His shell looks sweet.
Yeah, if you look at the shell,
yeah,
it's very similar to the Ninja Turtles shell.
Yeah,
how it's constructed.
Yeah,
if you look at behind the scenes pictures of how they modeled it after the Jim Henson Turtle shoe, they wanted to make it more comfortable.
Okay, cool.
For their suit actors, so they actually, I believe they sent us.
Had to be heavy, man.
Very heavy, especially with those rocks falling off of it.
I know.
So
it's a solid piece of it's a solid
and
suit.
it's fiberglass.
Oh, really?
It's fiberglass.
Wow.
Not to mention, that's a 200-pound suit. You had to be a big guy to be in that suit.
Yeah.
Then you had the motion control eyes. You had the mouth, and you had fire that you had to deal with, especially all the explosives they had in that movie.
Yeah. That was one of the coolest scenes at the end. Is the kind of final showdown? Is they actually fly into space.
Yes, and he drops Gauss.
Yeah, and they come back into the atmosphere, and giant Gauss heats up. And GAMERA's kind of protected because of his shell.
Also, if you didn't notice, GAMERA takes a chunk out of Gauss on
his leg off.
Takes his leg off.
Yeah.
Now in the original Gauss versus GAMERA, Gauss had the ability to grow back his feet.
Oh, interesting.
Any body part he could grow back.
He was a formidable foe.
Exactly.
Because of
if
that.
he shot off, if Gamera ripped off a piece of a leg, he could go back in his little cave and regrow it.
We got like Wolverine.
Yes,
Gauss
Wolverine,
over here,
Wolverine Kaiju. Yes,
or Deadpool Kaiju.
pretty much.
Yeah. No, that's sweet. Yeah, Gauss doesn't grow anything back this time.
No, there is no growing back for Gauss.
But it looks like Gauss won because they kind of land in this oil
refinery.
Field. Yeah, and there's this massive explosions. Like that was pretty cool.
Gamera was actually dead for a second.
Okay.
So that's why you saw the fire kind of regurgitating.
Yeah,
so Gamera was resurrected.
By
so
the girl.
He's the girl. So he is Jesus Turtle. Except not on the cross.
Man.
I'm just kidding.
Oh,
I'm kidding. I'm
man,
kidding.
yeah.
I'm
As long as
kidding.
the fans don't crucify us.
We won't be crucified.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think there's the symbolism because the director the director of the 3 Gamera films was a little religious. So, and he was spiritual. So he kind of took the concept of reincarnation and birth, all that.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And it's kind of like the what's her name? Asagi,
yes.
her relationship with her dad, kind of like she like grabs his hand as she's grasping the medallion.
Correct.
And all of a sudden the fireball kind of like reverses.
Yes.
And Gamera is
Emerges.
Brought back to
Exactly.
life. Yeah. Stronger and more powerful.
More powerful. And then of course Gamera heals her from her wounds. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Exactly.
And then they kind of have this cool like Harry Potter Voldemort showdown at the end where Gauss...
Don't put Harry Potter on my podcast, sir. We will do that another time, but not today.
But it's like Gauss is shooting his laser breath and Gamera shooting his...
Oh my... I can't believe you just said that.
Oh, no,
why did you compare my movie to Harry Potter? How dare you? I'm just kidding. That's fine. No, that's a great comparison. Voldemort and the final shot between Voldemort and him turning to ash. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That actually is a perfect representation.
It's kind of funny because this movie was done first.
Yes.
So
we had to wait. We had to wait another decade basically for that to happen.
Yeah, and then so JK kind of maybe like was borrowing from some other scenes.
I don't know what she was doing, but I hope she was watching Gamera. Maybe that helped her.
Yeah, but it's a pretty cool moment where up to this point Gauss is, I mean, what do you call it? Laser breath?
Beam breath.
Kind of like this powerful laser beam has been giving Gamera trouble the entire time.
Cutting him into slices.
And then all of a sudden, turtle meat.
This is turtle meat.
Dude, speaking of which, I always feel so bad when I see a turtle like going across the road. Have you ever seen those?
Yes, I crushed them.
I'm
totally joking. I do not kill animals.
Yeah. I'm new to Georgia. I just moved to Georgia last year. And
You'll be fine.
I have never seen so many dead armadillos.
You'll be fine.
So, I mean, I'm kind of over here just rooting for Gamera because,
you want him not to get run over.
You don't want him to get smashed.
No, you don't want him to be smashed.
Wouldn't you know it? He breathes fire.
He breathes fire.
To kind of win it at the end.
Yeah, it more looked like a gas burp to me, but it's still fun.
It's powerful for sure.
It's very powerful.
Very
and
cool.
I just love your reaction to it's like you had a stroke, dude, when you saw the jet boosters.
I got caught off guard with the jet boosters. When he literally becomes a flying saucer that spins so fast.
It's fun.
Like a UFO. It's so funny.
When you watch the second movie, his whole chest opens up with a huge fireball. It's like a Dragon Ball Z move. He just like
Yeah. It's like I can only imagine what people who were maybe used to Godzilla were like, what their reactions were when they were watching this for the first time.
So I'll tell you a story that someone told me at a convention, non-disclosure. Anyway, one of the experts that I spoke to said that he was in a screening in Japan, and the director said there were a lot of Westerners at that screen. I don't know why. And the story was that when they premiered the new Gamera film, they were shocked because they thought they were going to make a mockery of it because of a certain TV show in America, Mystery Science Theater.
Interesting.
So they thought they were going to sing the Gamera song. I will not sing it for anybody. That will be another time.
Oh, man.
And the people in that movie were clapping.
Really?
Clapping. The director thought it was atrocious that they were clapping because why are they clapping? Is there a mistranslation? And then the gentleman who was representing that film group, or the tourist, was saying, no, they think it's a beautiful film. They're clapping because it's so good. So the Japanese director said, okay, but why are they still clapping? Because they're in awe. they've never seen a film with that much dedication.
Wow.
So the director said, "Oh, okay." Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and he bowed and said, "Well, I accept and I thank you." And then the comment was from one of the people said, "This is much better than Godzilla."
Really?
Yeah. And he said, he had tears in his eyes, and he said thank you, and he said, "I've never got that a compliment like that before, and I will take that to heart."
Yeah.
It was just funny.
Yeah. I mean, Godzilla definitely paved the way for GAMERA. But it was I liked it, and I think that it was like pretty fresh and a pretty fun take on like this monster kaiju genre.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
No, it's a great film. They're the only 3 films of GAMERA I'll ever watch over and over. I'll be fair, I do like watching the cheesy ones, but this is a great film series.
Yeah, at first you kind of think it's going to be a bit more cheesy because the suit, like the eyeballs on both GAMERA and
they're horrible, but
yeah, they're
it's okay.
Funny,
they are funny, but they're what makes it fun is that they put so much effort into the story.
Yeah.
And the visual effects and the pyrotechnics.
And what I notice is that they are trying to get you to build this personal connection with GAMERA through this girl.
Correct.
And so I'm thinking that's why they also made his eyes more human looking.
Correct.
Than the Gauss.
Yes.
Yeah.
More demon like.
Yeah, they were scary.
Terrifying.
For sure. Not
very,
my favorite.
very, very terrifying.
I'm gonna have nightmares of them tonight.
You're gonna have nightmares of those eyeballs and eating those cow carcasses.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh.
But King Goji, give us your rating for this kaiju, the second kaiju we've
what was
explored.
the rating we did last time?
Bro, you scored Godzilla very highly.
All right.
Until it was until the American remake came in.
That doesn't. We don't talk about that movie.
And then you scored it really low.
Okay, so I'm gonna give GAMERA across the board. I'm gonna be fair. From what did you say? 1 from 10?
Yeah, 1 to 10, 10 being the highest.
So I'm gonna give across the board about 9.
Nice.
Yeah, all across everything. I'm not gonna picky about anything. It's a fun film, and I have no gripes. I will watch it over and over again with friends if they're new to it. I would highly recommend it, just as a fun popcorn. Or just environmental friendly film. We just missed that part. I'm so sorry. We should have reminded me. Environmentally, I think it's got a great story for saving the planet in general, climate change, stuff like that, important stuff that people care about. It has a good message on that front, and basically, it's not Godzilla storyline, but it's not that kind of messaging. But it has the message of taking care of the planet. Less stuff we do, the better for animals.
Yeah, kind of. The my takeaway from it was this ancient civilization got destroyed
by its own problem,
because of it. Yeah, a monster of its own making, so to speak. And so then
and
they had to change.
Yes, and the real monster is humanity.
Yeah. And then our own Earth is suffering because of the pollution and a lot of the problems that they were facing,
and plutonium,
then, things that we're facing now.
Correct.
And if we don't change, if we don't do something to step in like GAMERA does,
we'll have a Gauss.
Yeah, then we're gonna have a bigger problem on our hands,
and more Gauss,
and potentially, more Gauss, potentially more people suffering because our Earth needs to be able to be protected in order to sustain life. And so,
also we'll have weird eyeballs.
There's a funny the moment where they do this, it almost felt like a commercial when they're kind of showing all of these environmental travesties.
So that was probably a little bit of stock footage.
Yeah.
Recycled from the news or something.
Yeah, for sure.
And definitely the news reporter who couldn't really make an emotional connection. That's really not really the point of that. But that news scene was just the logo in front of the woman who was making the news. That's a real news station.
Oh, really?
That's a real news outlet. That was probably... I would have to say about depiction of real life things in the movie. Again, it's not for real. I'm going to backtrack my score. I'm going to give it an 8.
An 8.
An 8.
Okay.
As far as realism and as far as relatable content.
Yeah.
I'll give it an 8 in that bracket. But as far as that, it's got a 9.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, I'm not the expert, but I would score it a solid 8. It doesn't have the kind of like iconic level that Godzilla does.
No, and it doesn't. It certainly doesn't have the messaging, but it does have its own message in it.
Yeah, so. And it's super fun. Some really great moments that'll really kind of catch you off guard. And,
exactly.
And leave your mouth open, jaw hitting the floor.
Yeah, very fun. Fun film.
Yeah, really, really great time. So GAMERA gets a 8.59 score around the board. Exactly. And it was a great time. We definitely recommend it.
We need to watch the whole film again.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. There's GAMERA for you.
GAMERA.
We love it. Thanks so much for. Oh, you're doing a little bit of singing.
GAMERA is really neat. He is filled with turtle meat. We all love GAMERA.
We got you to sing it after all.
Yes.
That's gonna be a soundbite for sure.
Oh, you know it.
Throw it on the YouTube Shorts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I meant to ask you, how does it feel to be a podcaster YouTuber?
It's really great. I love it. Sorry, my singing voice was in the way. Yes. It's been a huge fun time for me. I don't know about you, but just want to shout out, please like us. We're going to try to get that comment section fixed.
Yeah, we will.
Zuki. But please, when we do have that fixed for y'all, please leave a comment and give us your feedback. Also, like us.
Yes.
We need your help. We need a script. That too. And also, we're gonna do a contest. I didn't tell you this.
Yeah.
So we want y'all to choose a random kaiju of your choosing, and we will make a it's not really a contest. Let's just say you get to choose a movie, and we'll tally it up. And how many votes it gets,
yes,
we will choose it and we will do it.
That's the next. There'll be another episode.
It'll be a surprise episode.
That'll be cool. We'll do a surprise episode based on the entries that you guys give us.
Give us a list.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that we hit some of your favorite kaijus.
That's right.
Right here on the Two Guys and a Kaiju podcast.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Like we said, like and subscribe, comment, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye-bye.
Adios.
Adios.